Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about marketing. Like I say, it's going to be recorded as a podcast as well. I'm really fortunate today to be joined by a fellow entrepreneur and business owner, a lady called Sarah Kauter. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
So, I've known you for a few years now. Probably wasn't quite so grey when I first met you, and we've worked together in various ways over the years. I know a lot about your background. I know all the entrepreneurial things you've done. But for anyone who doesn't know you so far, can we have a little bit of a 2-minute bio, maybe just a little bit about you, the person, you, the entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Sarah. I'm 33. Personally, I have 3 children. I'm based in Essex. In terms of the business is also based in Essex, but we work with clients across the UK. We've also got some clients in Asia and in America and across Europe generally. I was shocked and fortunate enough to win Entrepreneur of the Year last year, which was Young Entrepreneur of the Year. I'm just going to slide that young in there because I think that's really important. And the business has now become multi-award winning, which is fantastic, including Best PR Marketing Agency UK. And we are up nominated for an award which was supposed to have been announced on Friday, but due to the current circumstances is on pause for Best Place to Work. That's not coronavirus. That was Yes. So yeah, that's sort of the overview there.
So I've known you for your marketing skills, and you own your own agency, which has evolved over the years, hasn't it? So today it's classed as a digital marketing agency, is that right?
So initially when the agency started, it was just me on my own as a freelancer. And then it grew fairly slowly at first and then sort of sped up, slowed back down when I had my 3rd child. And then since then has been quite quick, really. We've got different departments that manage different types of marketing. So we have people who look after the design elements. We have a team in socials. We have a team in content, PR, business development, events, essentially anything that you'd need to promote your company or brand.
So you've grown to be a fairly sizable agency over the years and obviously won lots of awards. No one saw the coronavirus coming, I'm guessing, just like us, and I'm sure you're in the same position. So before we come on to talk about marketing, you, the entrepreneur, tell me honestly, pandemic hit, lockdown hit, what were you thinking as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I think it was a shock for everybody. We were watching the news and I was very wary of bringing a team in when you could see it start to grow in the UK, because I was concerned that if one person contracted the virus and came into the workplace, that could sort of flatten everybody and we could not provide a service for as long as people were ill. So I kind of had that ticking across in the back of my head. So as a result, the team were actually asked to work from home a week before the lockdown, which was fortunate in the sense that we were ahead of it, but I think it was still, well, it definitely was still a massive shock to us, to clients, to everyone around us. I don't think anyone could see it coming. My mum described it as like a wrecking ball that just took everyone out, and I think that's pretty accurate.
That is indeed. And were you worried about business at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that anyone who owns a business would be. My main concern was for our clients who are startups or sole traders who are quite literally living off of whatever profit they get that month. And we put an immediate pause on their contracts because it's the right thing to do and it fosters good business relationships moving forward. A lot of the larger companies, luckily for me, the message that I've been putting out for years has been, if things are slowing down, you kind of need to double down. While everyone else is pulling back, if you're doing anything at all, you're naturally going to pull forward ahead of everyone else. So thankfully, the message I've clearly drummed into them sort of took hold, and we've had quite a lot of people say, okay, well, after the initial panic, because everyone run around with their hands up in the air for a bit, they've come back to us and said, right, how are we doing this? How are we going to present ourselves? What angles can we take? And the team and I, my team have been absolutely fantastic. Cannot praise them enough. They have been hugely supported and hugely helpful. they all individually went away and they took each client that we work with, and they came back to me with their own ideas on how that client could progress, how we could adjust their services. So, for example, we have a personal trainer and who now does everything through Zoom. So they're still training you, they're still standing there talking to you, but you're just in completely different places. Life as we know it has just got to adjust for this period.
I might need their details after this.
I think I do as well.
So pandemic hit, I guess a lot of people, a lot of companies look to cut back on costs in these situations.
Yeah.
And excuse me, that's not Corona either. A lot of people look to cut back on marketing spend in tough times, don't they? But what you're saying is that's the wrong thing to be doing.
Absolutely. And I think it's not necessarily marketing spend as much as you need to be marketing yourself. So if you are working on your own, it's just you and your business, and marketing is just an expense that you can't afford, that's not to say that you're wrong, because there are things that you can do for yourself. You can always promote yourself without using someone else. Okay, for the more intricate elements or for campaigns, you will need someone, but that's not to say you can't still put yourself in a better position, because everyone who's not doing something, you will overtake, you will overlap. And I highly encourage anybody who's looking at starting a business, well, don't hold back, still go forward, still look at, as long as it's obviously appropriate, look forward to launch anyhow, and just do what you can yourself. You can still update your social media channels, you can still write content for your website, there's still things that can help you.
So you own a successful agency, you're growing even in these tough times, because we've spoken before this, and I know you're still growing right now. We're going to come on to talk about the secrets and what you're doing to help that, but let's take it back a step before we do that and actually talk about what is marketing, just so we're all on the same page, which is probably the a difficult question to answer in a short space of time without going too deep. But what would you say marketing is?
So I don't like this question. I think I mentioned this to you before, mainly because it's so hard to answer without using jargon. And one of our things as a company very, very always says, we will not use jargon with you. So to kind of, on a level, explain it, marketing would be anything that you're doing or someone else is doing on your behalf to promote your company or brand, being two different things, because a company is an entity in itself and a brand could be me or you representing ourselves as our own brand, in order to gain awareness and increase sales.
Good answer. Quite technical, but a lot of people, I often think of marketing and they naturally assume advertising. That's sort of the above the line type of.
Yeah, it's a problem trying to help people to get past that. We always try and say to people, when you're working with a marketing agency, the fees that they're telling you you'll be paying on a monthly basis are the fees that you'll get for promoting your business. It's completely different to advertising. And ad spend would be an additional cost on top of that for placement in the media, boosts on social media. It could be anything like that. We, generally speaking, avoid those costs. Social media boosts is a different story. We do work with those. But in terms of media, for example, we are so inundated with being marketed at, not to, as a globe, just everybody. The amount of advertisements you see every day is incredible. You open a magazine, you look at the television, you're driving along and there's something there. It's just everywhere. That we want to avoid that for our clients, because it doesn't sink in anymore. There is no point, in my opinion, unless you're a huge company like your Apples and your Sonys, there is no point spending that money. Billboards and radio ads, to my mind, I've never seen them in the last 11 years. I've never seen a positive return on investment for that. However, if you are featured in a magazine where there's an article that is written as it's informative, it gives knowledge to the reader, if you can have your brand featured within that article, that's really powerful, because it shows that you know what you're talking about, that your brand has got some clout behind it, if you like. And that's the kind of marketing that we suggest to people. It's more organic, but it has more of an impact.
So there's sort of things which a lot of people just wouldn't have a clue how to go about, sort of the whole PR, getting articles in newspapers, how to do clever social media paid for campaigns, those type of things. but marketing can also be something as simple as your email signature, I'm
Yes,
guessing. It
absolutely.
could be how you present yourself, to how you look, because
Yep.
I'm guessing I mean, I know you, but it's not by chance that, the setting of your webcam at the moment looks classy, it looks professional. If you were in a scruffy background, we would think something different of you, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And people do, no matter how often you say you should never judge people, people do. The first impressions are so important. It counts. People will remember you for that. Um, if I was to send you an email and I didn't have a graphic at the bottom of my email, for example, or I had those things that people do where they type back off of, this is a personal pet hate of mine, where people respond off of email and then they have on their sign off, there may be spelling errors because I'm typing on my phone. Well, that's no excuse, really. You're presenting a business, it needs to be done in a professional manner. And if you're replying to a potential or current client and you haven't taken the time to explain yourself properly, ensure that your spelling is accurate, the punctuation is where it should be, what does that say about the service that you're providing?
Yeah, and even the way you answer the phone,
Yeah,
things like
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, certainly.
I always try and teach people that everything is marketing these days. It's how people perceive you, how easy it is to get hold of you. And they're not actually things that you as a digital agency would necessarily do, but I'm guessing you probably advise people on that type of thing.
We do. We also offer clients the opportunity, for example, you said, how easy is it to get hold of you? Um, we offer them the opportunity, we have phone lines running into our office. So if one of our clients says, yeah, I know, but I'm really busy, well, that's fine. We'll answer those calls for you. We'll ensure that we can help you to convert the calls as and where possible. So we do touch into sales slightly as well. But it's really important that when you pick up the phone, you're not giving it a sort of a hello, but you're introducing yourself, who's the company and how can I help you?
Brilliant. And I guess the flip side of that is when you're talking to people, if you're not on your A game, that does have an impact as well, what people think about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, not to say we all have days where we go in and speak to people and you walk out the room and you think, what happened? I've certainly done it. I know that I've done it in the last few months even. You can't expect yourself to be infallible. Like, you are a person, you will make errors. However, it's important before you go see someone, you research their company, you know what they do, try and establish what are their unique selling points. And don't be afraid either. From our perspective, if we're going to see a new client and there's a glaring problem there, we will address it and say, look, what is this and how does this work? Because if I'm looking at it, your customers will be looking at it, it will impact your sales, and our job obviously is to increase turnover.
So everything is marketing at the moment.
Yeah.
The world has changed in the last few weeks quite quickly. Um, how many times have you used the word pandemic before March the 1st?
Oh, yeah, I know. I don't think I did.
No, and unprecedented. There's a word we never used before. But now we're in a pandemic. The world has changed. Should you even be trying to market yourself at the moment?
I think it is very much based on who are you, what do you do, but ultimately, yes, you should. If you are in any way capitalizing on what is happening with people and you're benefiting from other people losing out, it's distasteful, isn't it? It's not nice. Like, the people who are buying hand gels and face masks and then selling them for a huge profit, it's absolutely appalling and it shouldn't be allowed to continue. However, if you've been running a business prior to this, you should still be running that business. Obviously, you will adjust. You could do things virtually over the phone. You'll find different target markets. Something we found that's really important, excuse me, mid-pandemic and all we've been doing is coughing. Um, you will notice, and it's really important to look at, your customer base, whoever you are, will have changed. So you need to reevaluate who your target audience is, because it will absolutely, regardless of who you are, not be the same audience that you had before. Even if it's a case of their buying habits will have changed, the way that they're looking at you will have changed. Certain words might not quite work anymore. So your entire strategy needs to be reevaluated. That should have been done already. If it's not, then it obviously needs to be a priority. Once that's been done, you need to have a look at how you're going to sell to them. How are you going to put your product forward in an ethical way that will still convert into sales? Once that will be part of your strategy, once that's established, then you can continue marketing yourself. you should absolutely market during this. Like I touched on earlier, if it's just you and you're a startup, you don't have to invest thousands and thousands of pounds into an agency. There are things that you can do yourself to make sure that you're being seen. However, if you can afford it, then I do think it's really important to go with someone who's reputable. Ask them what their past successes are, ask to see portfolios, evidence of success. We started guaranteeing our results recently because we realised that we were telling people what to expect and we were always meeting them. Well, then why don't we just guarantee it? So you need to have faith in the person that you're working with, that they will be able to achieve what they've said, because ultimately putting money into marketing is an investment. It's an investment in your future of your company. It's not an expense. You will get it back.
So we'll talk more about your guarantee in a little bit, but I guess people have changed all of a sudden as well, and their habits have changed. So they're now working from home, whereas before they worked in offices, and so people's time is different, and their whole attitude to life has probably changed a lot, I'm guessing.
I absolutely agree. I think people are realizing that we as a society, in my opinion, have been very, me included, have been very materialistic in what we've had, what possessions have been there. And, this has made me feel good because I've worked to be able to buy that. And absolutely no criticism, because I've done it myself and I would certainly not criticize myself. But it's not, now we're sitting in our houses, we can't go anywhere. It's the experiences, the things that you're looking back at and you're remembering is that time that I went on holiday and I had this experience, the time that I took the children here and that happened. You're not looking at a pair of shoes or a handbag and thinking, oh, that was fantastic. So as a result, I think a lot of people have dialed back on that kind of spending. Equally, things like the industry for loungewear has obviously gone up because we're all sitting at home. You don't necessarily want to be doing that in a three-piece suit. And the way that people are considering their spend has changed as well. Obviously, all the spending at the minute, other than your essential shopping, is online.
So just checking, have you got jogging bottoms on underneath that we just can't see?
No, I've got black jeans on, but that's mainly because I know you'd ask me that.
So I guess there's probably initially in the first week or so, people were sat at home and thinking, I'm not going to do any marketing, because there's no point. But
Yeah.
we're now faced with the reality that this is going to go on for a while. Business has to continue. So that's a fact, and we just don't know how long this can continue. And my personal viewpoint is life is going to change after this anyway. There will be more people working from home and businesses will evolve. So now is not the time to stop marketing, is it? You've just got to evolve.
Absolutely.
So
If it should be, if you can afford it and it's going to be effective, because that's obviously always the end goal, is whatever you do must work, then it's probably the time to increase and be able to benefit yourself. There's programs online. There's one called SEMrush, for example, where you can see what your website's doing, but you can also tally yourself against competitors. So you can see keywords, for example, where are they ranking, what have they done, how has it worked. If you look at, well, you can't see my screen, but my clients versus their main competitors, where the ones that have said to us, double down, do a bit more, let's really put a push on this, you can see them go up and you can see their competitors either say static or drop. Now, obviously, you'd never want to capitalize on someone else losing out, but equally, it's really important that you, for your business, your income, your family, do take this opportunity to do as much as you can to promote yourself.
and we're in the same position. So our travel franchise business, for example, we've not tried to capitalize on the situation, but we've carried on marketing, whereas our competitors have stopped. Therefore, it's actually cheaper for us than it used to be. Now, we're
Yeah.
not expecting to get lots of sales, but we're staying in the marketplace ready for when the business is there again.
Absolutely. It's future proofing, isn't it? It's protecting yourself and investing in what your company can do, because ultimately this will end. It has to end, and it's going to end. So what position will your business be in when you come out the other side of it? You need to make sure it's in the best shape it can be. And you can also take the opportunity to look at what you've got that you weren't entirely happy with before and work out kinks. So if you've never 100% like your branding, for example, why not work on it now? If you don't quite like your company tone, work on that.
Brilliant. Yeah. So being more specific then, I know you work in certain sectors, for example, the hospitality, leisure, travel sectors. Yeah. At the moment, I own a travel business and a travel franchise company. So not the best industry to be in at the moment. And I'm sure if you own a restaurant or clubs, cinemas, same sort of problem. what's the point in even marketing if you're in one of those sectors right now?
I think the type of marketing you're doing needs to change. I think things like pay-per-click, for example, unless people are actively going out and booking cinema tickets and buying holidays, the effectiveness of what you're spending is going to be highly reduced. If you set your parameters on your clicks to be, for example, flights to Dubai in 2022, that's a very different story to tomorrow. So you need to segregate yourself. I do understand that 2022 isn't out yet, but like just as an example, you should still be doing something though, because when you do come out the other side, people have very short memories, and you could attract not only your old customer base but a completely new customer base if you reach them while others aren't. So if you're a restaurant, for example, what's not to say that you can't sit and have your chef come up with amazing new recipe ideas, do online tutorials, so make this food at home, I will show you how to do it, we'll do some live streaming, we'll have a chat about it, and then after all this is over, come in and try it, compare it to yours, let's, you know, look at what we can do. You just have to kind of be a little bit clever with what you're doing and try and think outside the box, because old school marketing is not going to work. I mean,
So it's finding ways to stay in front of people so that when time is right, they remember you.
absolutely. It's about building that relationship with a potential client. And I think we've all probably seen the stat that you need to sit in front of someone 7 to 8 times before they'll recognize your branding and feel like they can trust you. I think even people in the business to business sector, we do a lot of work with business to business and business to consumer. And the B2B, you'd think, well, that's fine because businesses are still running. It's not really, because they're being very cautious. They're not entirely sure where to spend their money. So it's about breaking through and saying to people, this isn't necessarily about now. This is something that will benefit you long term, especially if you are a brand that no one can buy from now. Don't push it, don't make it forced and make yourself look untrustworthy. Just sit back, accept the situation, as hard as that may be, and think about how you can make sure that your company will flourish on the other side.
I've noticed a big shift in the type of marketing people are doing, which has moved more towards helpful marketing and fun type of marketing. I'm saying marketing, they're not necessarily seen as here's an advert. It's more of a pushing out, like you said, here's a tutorial on, or you know, how to make a new recipe, or here's how to, you know, here's some live streaming of music or something which they wouldn't normally do, but you know, people are engaging. They've got much more time to sit and look at social media, for example. So that type of habit has evolved quite quickly in the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And I think even from a personal point of view, with nothing to do with business, this is a horrible time for everybody. And we all need to look at it as, you know, we are one big community. We need to support each other. So it can't all be personal to you either. You have to think about the people that are sitting at home, that they could be on their own. They might live alone and they've spent the last 2 weeks alone and they're feeling really low. Putting things out there that they can engage in and they can take part in from the empathy behind it. What can you do to help people? We set up a Facebook page, which is for people who own businesses. And it was set up 10 days ago, and we've got 750 business owners on there now. And I've explicitly put on the page, this is not for selling to each other, this is for helping each other. And I've made it so I can monitor the posts. So if anyone does try to slide in with a, I'm selling this and this is how much it is posted, it kind of gets knocked on the head. But it's very much, we've got accountants on there saying, look, if you want some business advice, I've written something out for you. There's solicitors on there giving advice about various items. We're giving free marketing advice on there. Anyone who writes on there, we're coming up with ideas and generating. It's about working together as a community. Yes, that will help long term, and no doubt people will remember you for the good things you do, but also people just feeling terrible. And anything you can do to make them feel a bit better is worth it.
I saw, I was talking to somebody else the other day actually, and they made a really good point that you have to look at the marketing you have been doing, and you may need to change it based on the situation right now. For example, scheduled posts. If you've got a load of scheduled posts going out, you might need to check them to make sure they're appropriate, because there's so many posts we've seen going out lately where people haven't thought about it and it's totally the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely. We schedule our Instagram around a month in advance. So, for example, if there's a particular day when we're trying to raise awareness for, there's one coming up which is Wear Purple Day for stroke awareness. So around 6 weeks ago, I had the entire team come in with the purple t-shirts and put them on, and we took our photo, and I scheduled it on social media. And then when all of this hit, I had to sit down, go through all of my scheduled posts and adjust the blurb on it, because we're not all in the office that day. Like, we don't want people to think that this is what's happened. And I have just made it very candid and said, we took this in advance. You know, there's one, it's National Pajama Day in a couple of days, and my post now says, who would have thought that we actually will be working in our pajamas? Like, it's changed. The world has completely turned on its head.
And do you think there's a difference between small business and big business marketing at the moment?
I think, controversially, that the pandemic has brought us all onto a level. I think that a lot of people want to support small businesses. I think the big businesses will continue to run because they will always have support. But people are looking at the whole, I am buying from a person here, I'm not buying from a corporation. And I want to work with that person, and I want to have a working relationship with that particular person. And that's so important at the minute. And I think with the news doing what it is doing, saying 20% of small businesses are going to fail within the next couple of weeks, and it's awful. There's a lot of scare tactics going around, and I really dislike the fear mongering. But equally, it is bringing attention to people that you do need to support businesses still.
So let's drill down on some specifics then. You're in a pandemic. What advice or what techniques are really working right now for people?
I think social media for the last few years and still continues to be really powerful. There's a lot of tools as well that you can use on social media that are free. So you mentioned scheduling earlier. For Instagram, you can use one called Plannerly, where you can schedule your content. You can make up groups for hashtags as well, so it saves you time. But equally, you can see your grid, so you can see how it's going to lay out once it's all posted, which if you're a company selling something where aesthetics matter, that's quite important. Twitter, again, you've got so many different, you've got TweetDeck and you've got Hootsuite, you've got all sorts of things you can schedule on. And Facebook was, a month ago, I'd say, the world of women who are over 30, and that seems to be evening out now, and a lot of people are going back to Facebook because they're sitting at home and there's not so much to do. Online media, really important.
On the social media, is there any platforms that you find better performing than others? Does it make a difference by sector or industry type?
The Plannerly that I mentioned earlier, I think is really good for scheduling, but you can't really see the results. The internal results of each platform are usually, to my mind, the best that you can get, and they're free. So if you have a business account on Instagram, you can go into the background and you can see the analytics and the insights, and you can work out the best time to post and who engages with your posts. There's an app called Follow Plus, and the plus is like a cross, which is quite good for being able to see who your top contributors are, the top people that engage with you, and the people that follow you but never engage. Well, why don't they engage? Are they an account that hasn't been used for a long time? Have they followed you and they've not seen you? Does the algorithm not pick you up? And the same for Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, any of the platforms. You should go into the back end and you can see those analytics. You can see how it's performed and why.
So you mentioned that Instagram particularly good for aesthetics. So Instagram's very picture based, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So if your business is good for pictures, then that's a really good platform to use potentially.
Yeah.
If you sell widgets and it's very difficult to get a good photo of a widget, possibly not the best platform for you.
No, definitely not. And each company, and this has always been the case, needs to make sure that anything that it's doing for marketing fits the audience. So if you're selling skateboards to teenagers, LinkedIn is probably not going to be a good bet for you, but Twitter would work a bit better. If you're working with solicitors and barristers, LinkedIn is going to be a lot more effective. So you do need to look at who your audience are and where they would naturally populate.
And do you do the same content on each platform?
I mean, ideally, no. Ideally, each platform would have completely different content. Ours does. We're in the position where, obviously, managing social media for other people, we need to have a platform on pretty much everything. So we have a presence. And the way that I make sure that it's fresh and interesting is I have a different member of our team working on each platform, so that all of the content that's coming out is completely organic, it's personal to them, but also well suited to who they are. And then our Instagram, we have a takeover each day. It's normally each week when we're in the office, but it's got to be daily at the minute because I don't know, you could sit there for a week and just film your house. But we have a takeover each day, and a different person will talk and tell you what they're doing, and sort of, this is what I'm listening to on my music playlist today, and just keep it fresh and updated. You need to think about what you can do to make yourself stand out. When clients come to us and they don't really have the budget to do that, then the content that's put out needs to be the same, because the budget isn't there, unless they are happy to take some of that content away, ideally, and run it themselves. But where possible, we will try and make tweaks so it suits the platform.
Okay, so you were going to go on and talk about other digital things there?
Yes, I mean, the media, digital media, whether that's online newspapers, magazines, podcasts, TV, anything like that, is always powerful. As I mentioned before, you get your name out there in a knowledgeable way that shows that you're an industry leader. It's become even more so now. So many people are reading the news and are more aware of current events, for obvious reasons, that having your name out there mentioned and being picked up is really, really useful for brand recognition. It also has the dual effect of, if you've got a link, whether that's a follow link or a no follow link online, or a mention of your brand on another website, it gets picked up by Google, and they use it as an indicator to say this is a really interesting website because people are talking about it. The more you're talked about, the more Google thinks your website is interesting, the higher up the rankings you go. So it's not just a case of brand recognition, it helps your SEO so that when people are genuinely searching for what you do, they will land on your site anyway. And as we all know, that's the time to catch people, is when they want and need what your service is providing.
So basically, you need to be doing things to get talked about. Do
Yep.
interesting things which get you talked about on social media, on your website, in the digital sphere, lots of
Yep.
different ways. And the more you get talked about, the just spirals, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. It sort of picks up. I always explain it to people as a steam train. When you first start marketing yourself, it can be a bit of a hoof to get you going. You've never
Yeah.
done it before, you've been doing it differently, it's a complete change of pace. And then once it starts going, it just picks up more and more speed until eventually it's running on its own, and what you're doing can be quite low key. And that's when people can look at reducing their budgets, pulling back, or if they want to go faster, investing a bit more. It becomes very organic as time passes, but the start can be hard.
So that could be as simple as a really cool post on Facebook that people like, I'm guessing. And then it
Yeah,
starts from there.
it can be, effective marketing can be as small or as large as you need it to be.
So it could just be a nice photo, but that's not really a story. That's not going to get picked up by local, regional, national press, but it might
No,
go viral because it's a nice photo. So if you can do things which get some attention because it's a good story worth sharing, then that potentially, that gives somebody like you, an agency, something to go and shout about, I'm guessing.
absolutely. We also have clients come to us who say, I want to be in the media. I want to be on This Morning, for example, was one example we had a client say. And we all sort of looked at each other and thought, and I said to him, how? Like, you're not you've never been on this sort of platform before. Like, what is your angle? And sometimes people come to you, and it's helpful when they give you a target and they say, this is where I want to be. And you can then structure your campaign to make sure you get them there. That particular client we had on This Morning within 6 months, so it works. It then comes down to the agency to figure out what is the unique selling point, how can we make sure that this person is doing the right thing. And sometimes we have to tell people, okay, if this is what you want to do, this is what you need to do for your part of it. We can totally get that story publicity, but you've got to follow through with it, because it's going to be 50 times worse if you're saying you're doing something and you're not.
And one of the things we were talking about before we started was the type of stories that people, the media, are looking for at the moment does change, and at the moment it's quite unusual, isn't it, what people are looking for?
Yes, very. It's completely and utterly changed. So like we touched on earlier, I don't think that loungewear has ever had such a massive boost, and I highly doubt that people are going out and buying the three-piece suits, because who's going to see them? Where are you going to wear them?
Absolutely. And good news stories are actually more interest now than ever before, because normally bad news sells papers.
Absolutely, but now what the daily media are doing is, at the end of each day, they're doing a roundup of the good news, the feel-good stuff. So, for example, you might have seen that there was some sheep that in Wales come and started roaming the streets because there was no one around, and in Chile some cougars started coming down, and everyone was a bit like, this doesn't normally happen. Near Romford in Harold Wood, there was deer that came out of the forest and started sitting on the lawns outside people's houses. So there's there's always a spin, there's always something that you can do. If you're helping someone or you're doing something good, you're in some way easing the stress that is happening right now. There's a story to be had there.
Okay, so it's busy out there at the moment. Lots of stories, lots of good and bad news stories, lots of things to shout about. How do you stand out in a crowd?
You need to make sure that what you're doing is unique, because if 50 other people are doing it, it's not really a story, is it? And you need to make sure that you've got, this is where people struggle with PR, is we've got the journalist connections, we've got the media connections, we've been doing it for all these years, and we know that if a client comes to us in a, I don't know, a business to business or tech environment, we know we can get them featured because we know we've got those relationships there. They might not, so it will make life a little bit more difficult, but you can go online, look up, for example, a article that is featured in your industry and look for the person who wrote it, and then see if you can get in touch with them, see if you can look them up on Twitter, for example. You can do it yourself, it is possible. If you want to get it out there as a one-off, a lot of PR agencies will just do a project basis where they will get that story into the media for you and you can sort of let them run with it.
So it could be on a story basis, but it could be your business as a whole. So often called a unique selling point or unique selling proposition is what makes you different. Our travel franchise business, for example, when we launched, we had our 100% money back challenge. So that was like, oh, shock and awe, different. You've got something similar in your business, which completely blows the socks off of any competitor, I guess.
Yes, so we do our guaranteed results. Essentially, as I touched on earlier, we were always saying to people, these are the KPIs, this is what we will meet. And then we realised over time that we were always meeting them, and 99 times out of 100 we were exceeding them. So we decided as a senior management team it would be strategic to guarantee those results, because they're being met anyway. It helps us, and obviously it gives people that peace of mind. There are a lot of people who have had marketing or PR before and come away feeling disillusioned, because essentially, if you're not putting a guarantee on what you're doing, you are selling thin air. You're making a promise that may or may not materialise. What we're doing is saying it will be there. This is how much you'll pay. This will be the result from it. Obviously, the two go hand in hand, because if we've only got 10 hours to invest versus 100, the results are reflecting that. And then once they've got that guarantee in hand, they know that that's what they will be achieving. If we ever come to the day where we haven't achieved that level that we've guaranteed, then we would just continue working free of charge until we did meet what we promised that we would deliver. To my knowledge, we're the only agency in the UK that do that.
And that helps you stand out in a crowd.
Absolutely, yeah.
That becomes a no-brainer for anyone who's looking at which agency do I choose, one that guarantees results, one that doesn't. I'm not saying you are, but you might be more expensive compared to one that's cheaper, but you guarantee your results. So it really does help decision making, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and realistically, anyone who's doing any kind of marketing or PR is doing it because they have an end goal. They want to make more money, or they want to be seen by X, Y, and Z people. There's a very definitive target there, and once we know what that target is and we guarantee it, well, why would you not do that? Even if you've been burnt by an agency who may have been disingenuous before, you know that's not going to be the case here because you've got that guarantee in place.
So some people I see will come up with a USP, which is good service. Is that a USP?
Not really. I mean, I think good service is something that should just be standard in every business, really. Yeah. It retains customers and it makes people feel good. Like it's pretty low level. Your USP needs to be something that you do exceptionally well or is completely different to anybody else. So you need to take a look at what your business does, the results that it gives and how it develops itself, and then establish what the key points are in there. So going back to the person who makes suits, for example, how do you make your suits? How do you source the products? Are they ethically sourced? That would be a USP in itself, because many people aren't ethically. It could be that your suits are tailor-made. Again, that's another USP. Many suits aren't. So it's looking at what your product does and how it does it differently.
Because the reality is everybody's going to say they give great customer service, don't they? It's not Absolutely. Until you've tried it that you'll find out if that's true or not.
Absolutely. And there will be people, so for example, we've worked with people in recruitment who go, well, we don't have a USP, because there are so many people. You always have a USP. You always do. And you can always get to the bottom of it when you work with someone and you talk to them and you learn more about their business. There is always one there. So don't ever feel disillusioned and, well, I'm just the same as everyone else, because you're not. There is something that you do and you do well.
So if you don't have one, now's a great time to sit back. You've got more time than you ever had before. Sit back and actually work out what is your USP.
Absolutely. It's really important to know what that is. And then it should be all over your website. You should be talking about it, and you should make sure that people are aware of it.
So cheap prices, is that a USP?
I mean, it depends on your brand, I think. If you're the pound shop, yes, that is your USP. It does what it says on the tin. What you don't ever want to do is make your brand look less than it is. If you're providing a premium service and people are expecting a certain level from you, they will accept that it's not going to be the cheapest on the market, but cheapest and best don't necessarily go hand in hand with each other. So it's
I was
sorry,
going to
go on.
say that there's always going to be somebody cheaper though, isn't there?
Absolutely. And you should never devalue your product by trying to keep up with somebody else. You need to look at something but be realistic as well. If your product is okay, you can't price yourself as a premium service. It needs to be honest.
And there is a difference between value and cheap, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely.
So do you want to
So
be the best value or do you want to be the cheapest? Very, very different things. Because
always be value. It should be, what are you getting at the end and how much does that give you? If you're getting something that's a premium, you're holding a handbag that is made out of pure leather and it's beautiful and it's effective and you know it's going to last for years and you can hand it down in your family, then you don't mind paying that little bit more for it. And that is the value, is you're holding something that means something and it looks good. You're not going to compare that to the prices of something you'd buy in Topshop, for example.
so if you're a restaurant, that could be, you might all sell the same spaghetti carbonara, let's say, but one restaurant could be more expensive than another, even though the ingredients came from the same place, but the experience is very different.
Absolutely. So you may find that you're being served by waiters who are particularly attentive. The ambiance could be different. They could put more effort into how your food is being served to you and the plating. There are so many things to consider. It's not just black and white as to that's what I'm getting, so that's how much I should pay. It's the end
So
result, the experience, how it makes you feel, and what your return from that product and service is.
you could be a retailer selling something else. For example, our travel business, we resell other people's holidays, but the experience you wrap around it is what you're selling, not necessarily the product itself.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've been away with your brand, and it is the knowing that you've got a personal travel advisor there who days before will go, here are your tickets, this is where you need to be, this is how it works. You get off the other end and they've arranged for your transfer for you. The last trip that we did with you guys, we got to the hotel and they'd arranged champagne and strawberries. That is what it's about. It's about going with, and I'm not to say that's what you guys do every time, because I'm sure every holiday is completely different, but it's about how what you're doing makes the other person feel.
So that's not a plug for our business. That's just to say that you need to think that it's not, you think about the experience you're giving. And when we're talking about USP, for example, it's not about the product itself, it's our service. That's where the USP's got to come from. And what you're talking about there is what we wrapped around the holiday experience to give you that wow factor. So you want to keep coming back for more.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, we'll find that clients, for example, sometimes contact us at the weekends or they contact us in the evenings. And as and where possible, I will take the time to chat to them, talk through what it is that they want to discuss. And that they say that they don't experience that. And most places go, well, we shut at 5, so that's that. And it's making sure that you're giving someone what they require as and when they require it. And you do it to a professional, good level.
Brilliant. Okay, so getting near the end. Couple of entrepreneurial questions for you, and then one tip to leave people with, I guess.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurial question. I'm a geek. Is there one tool or resource that you use in your life, your business, that really helps you enormously? For me, it's Evernote, for example. I'm never with every device I've got. It's got Evernote on, always keeps all my notes there. Anything you use like that?
I think probably the best thing for people in general that I can give in terms of advice would be Google as a whole. Google's got a family of products and services. So you've got Google Analytics, which is the best known one. if you are ever looking at your website and not really know what's going on, if you go into the back end, you look at Google Analytics, it will show you who's visited your website, when they visited it, how they got there, what they did when they got there, how they jumped from pages, what page they landed on, what page they left on. It gives you a really good feel for what people think of your site, what's attracting them, what's making them want to leave, and you can adjust your sales message and, if necessary, the branding, for example, to suit that, to make sure you get more sales. So that one's really handy. There's also Google Alert, which is a great tool. I use that for all of our clients. So if anyone writes something about them, it could be a throwaway comment on Twitter, or it could be a really important article. We would get an alert to say, Not Just Travel has been featured on X, Y, and Z. And then we'd be able to go have a look at it and establish what's being said about people and how it works. That's really important. It's something that every single business should set up. You need to know what people are saying about you. There's also Google Search Console, which used to be known as Webmaster Tools, which will show you what people are searching for and then finding your website, which means you can then identify key phrases that are being put into Google that people are searching when they want to buy from you. And you can then work on optimizing those phrases through organic SEO, which will result directly in more sales and more money for you.
Brilliant. And what gets you out of bed in the morning? What's your motivation? Or where do you get it from?
For me, a lot of where I get it from and the people that I speak to the most are definitely my family. My dad owns his own business. My mum's dad owned his own business. So there's a lot of good advice to be had there. And I think even my mum, for example, is an employee of a company rather than a company owner, but that gives you a completely different spin on things, because if you're thinking about something, you sometimes will know what your team would think from the other side. So you can fly ideas past and say, what would you think if? So it gives you a really well-rounded view. And obviously it goes without saying my children, because essentially the whole reason of doing this is for them. It's to be able to give them the best that I can provide for them and know that there's something that they can do if they want to. My youngest child is disabled, so it's about being able to provide her with a lifestyle in the future, always knowing she'll be employed, because there will be a way, and especially as technology evolves as it is, there will be a way that she can work. If she wants to, she might turn around and say, actually, Mum, I want to be a pro singer, in which case, fabulous. So yeah, that's that for me.
Okay, and then final thought for anyone who's wants to improve their marketing, what's the sort of one action you tell people to take leaving this, listening to us now? What would you tell them to go and do?
Be completely transparent with people. That really is the main thing that you can always do. If you try and fluff up the edges and not be entirely honest, it is never going to work for you. And my dad always used to say to me, chase the results, don't chase the money. And it's so true. If you get good results for people and you send them a product that they love, or you provide a service that they're really happy with, they will stay with you, they will come back to you, and you will retain that customer base. You can't look at your business as a machine to generate an income, because it will never be successful. You need to look at it as a machine that would generate great results.
Amazing. So if anyone would like to know more about you and your business, because you've been absolutely amazing, you've packed a huge amount into this last 50 minutes, how can they find out more about you?
We are very spelt with 2 R's and 1 I on each end. We are in Essex. We are a marketing and PR agency. So if you type in marketing agency Essex or PR agency Essex, will come up in Google anyhow. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, you can find us.
Fantastic. And we'll put links to your website in the show notes. But you're in Essex, but you're not just in Essex, I'm assuming.
No, we're not. We work with clients globally. My favourite clients to work with are UK-based clients, because obviously we're in the UK and it's a territory that we know well. However, we also work in Europe, Asia and America.
Fantastic. So thank you for your time today. You've been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. And we'll put links to Sarah on the show notes. So if you'd like to know more, do visit her website and get in contact. Thanks, everyone. It's been great, and see you all soon.
Thank you.